This is Surviving as a Civilian. I am your host, Scott. With the help of my friend Andrew, we created this podcast to share success stories of combat veterans and how they overcame the challenges of returning back to civilian life. These are actual stories told by actual veterans. Content warning, this podcast talks about war, and some of the stories in this podcast contain graphic events of violence and may contain explicit language. Listener discretion is advised. Additionally, these veterans are telling their story of how they recall the events. Some of the details may have changed over time. Hey, welcome to Surviving as a Civilian. I am here with my guest, Will. Will, how are you?
I'm doing good, Scott. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much for doing this stuff, honestly.
Of course.
I know you don't get that much time off, and I appreciate you taking a little bit of time to share your story.
Yeah, it's my pleasure.
All right, so let's get into it. What branch of the military did you serve in?
I served in the Army from 2007 to 2013.
Okay, why did you pick the Army?
My family, my grandfather was in the Marines, and my family always grew up very respectful of military guys. My parents never wanted me to join. They were very against it because, you know, the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan kicked off in 2001. And
what year did you join?
I joined in 2007.
God, that's ballsy. I got a lot of respect for you. So I told the other guys this. I got respect for you guys that joined when both wars were happening.
So you joined before then, huh?
Yeah, way before.
That's right. Okay.
But so
and
go ahead.
It was something I saw on the news just growing up, and my parents were very much against it. And I was always fascinated by seeing the soldiers on the news just in downtown Baghdad. And, you know, I knew it was dangerous. I kind of understood what was going on there. I've always been pretty involved with politics and the news, even since I was younger. And by the time I was reaching senior year of high school, I didn't want to go to college. And my parents were very adamant about making sure I go to college. They said that there was basically no other way you're going to make it in life unless you go to college. And that kind of, it struck a nerve with me. I didn't like it. It made me mad. And I went to a recruiter and just kind of asked what they have to offer. And everybody talks about how much they hate their recruiter. It's hilarious. They're like, oh, my recruiter lied to me. My recruiter was a great guy. He was a combat engineer.
Mine was too.
He, and his name was First Class. I think it was Lund, actually.
Get out of
another
here.
Lund. He was.
I'm gonna look him up.
Yeah, he's this really tall dude, red hair, but he was an awesome guy. But anyways, he told me what the Army could do for me. They're like, hey, you're gonna live on your own. You're gonna get your own paycheck. You get to choose what job you want. I had Marine recruiters I talked to, and they're like, yeah, choosing your job's not so much something we do here.
Yeah, it's not their thing. But you go through the training, and then you get your job.
Yeah, that just wasn't appealing to me. The idea of signing a contract of the exact job I wanted was something that appealed to me. And just being independent from my parents and being able to survive without college and having my own, I knew it was going to be a barracks room, which I liked. I'd get out of my parents' house. And I wanted to be in the war. I wanted to go to the front lines. And I asked my recruiter, what is a guaranteed job to send me to the front lines? And he's like, well, you have infantry and combat engineer. And I was like, well, what's the difference? He's like, well, infantry is more rifles and shooting, and combat engineer has some of that, and then a lot more explosives, demolition, and counter IED. And I was like, well, I want to do that. That sounds awesome.
Hell yeah.
So they signed me up, and the interesting part was, I didn't recognize at the time, is the day I left for basic, they all of a sudden came to me and they're like, well, I show up at the recruiting station to leave, and they're like, hey, Private McKinney, you get a $22,000 bonus. And I'm like, what? Awesome. And they're like, yeah. And years later, it's because it was a critical MOS. And I think that was the most guys that were dying in Iraq at the time, 2007, were combat engineers.
Yeah.
And of course, I didn't put that together in 2007 when I joined, but
right.
I was sure as hell happy to get a huge bonus.
Right.
And that was kind of the start and how I joined the Army.
So how old were you when you joined?
I was 18 and I was still in high school.
Dang. Okay. So you didn't do that.
Yeah. And And I didn't tell my parents a word of it. I talked to the recruiter completely behind their back and stuff like that. And then went to Mets and joined and enlisted without telling them because I knew they'd be so upset. And it worked out for the better because I was able to use the excuse once they found out. I was able to use the excuse. Well, it's too late, Mom, Dad. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a contract.
Like, you have to. You can't. You can't go. You can't. I was like, no, I already signed the contract. Too late.
So, for those that are listening, explain what a combat engineer. Explain what you did as a combat engineer. The whole time. So,
as a combat engineer, when I was in the 1st Cavalry Division out of Fort Hood in Iraq, we strictly did route clearance. We were in MRAPs and trucks, and we drove all throughout the area of operation to clear roads for logistics and other platoons, other companies to move through, guys, the infantry guys doing missions. And we would just clear the roads in vehicles. We'd use the Buffalo, the Husky, and a bunch of RG-31s. And it was a good experience, but I didn't like it that much. I had always been fascinated with light fighting, which is why I re-enlisted in Iraq just to go to Fort Drum, 10th Mountain Division. That was actually where my recruiter was from, and he was a combat engineer in 10th Mountain. And he told me some of his stories, and it was just exactly what I wanted. And when I got to Fort Drum, we were attached in sapper teams, which a sapper is just another term for a combat engineer, I guess. And we were attached to teams of sappers with the infantry companies. And then then we got to do what I really wanted to do, what I joined for. And it was me as a team leader, a sergeant, with 3 other sappers under me. And then we would go on missions with the infantry platoon, and we would carry the explosives, and we would do demolition for them. When we found IEDs, we'd blow them up. When we got into firefights, we would join in the firefight. When we, were getting attacked, we would help maneuver on the enemy. We would be throwing grenades, shooting grenades. It was honestly a lot of fun when nobody was getting hurt.
Right. So how long did you serve?
A total of 5 years and 6 months.
Okay. And did you end up making staff sergeant?
No. They talked about how they wanted to send me to the board for staff sergeant when I was in Afghanistan. And then after I got blown up, they were like, yeah, no, like we're going to give that promotion to someone else that's here. And I was like, I was kind of bitter at first, but I understand. And there wasn't really any reason for me to be a staff sergeant in the hospital transitioning out,
Right. But so you said you did 2 deployments, right?
Yeah, 2 deployments. They were both supposed to be a year. And the first one to Iraq was a year, but the second one was supposed to be a year, and it got cut short at 6 months when I got blown up like almost right halfway through the tour.
All right, so let's talk about the one that I know you from, the second deployment. So overall, what was the mission that your squad had?
So my squad was second platoon of the 3 BSCB sappers, Alpha Company, and we were assigned to go with Black Hawk Company of 287 Infantry. And Black Hawk Company had their own assigned area of operation that they were to patrol and secure and kind of just engage with the locals, try to win hearts and minds, I guess, while at the same time getting shot at a lot by the Taliban that was there. And us sappers, when we showed up to their company, they're like, who the hell are you guys? What are you supposed to do? We're like, well, we're the combat engineers. We're supposed to help you. And they're like, yeah, okay, whatever. They're like, just go over there and be quiet. And we kind of had to convince them for the first couple weeks or so to take us out on patrol. Like, hey, if anything, we'll just be an extra trigger finger for you. Like, we'll help you out. And sure enough, on that first mission, we were extremely helpful in finding IEDs because we brought our metal detectors and stuff, and we were a lot better at using them than they were. They had basic training on the metal detectors, but I got sent by the company to go to Camp Lejeune for like a week before we deployed to learn how to use the Minehound.
Yep.
And my Minehound, I used it, and they were just fascinated at the idea that I could use ground penetrating radar to find changes in density in the soil rather than just finding metal, because a lot of these IEDs are made without metal. So after kind of showing them what we were capable of and getting into a few firefights with them and showing that we weren't scared and stuff like that, they were like, oh my God, you guys are awesome. And they started bringing us on every mission with them to always be the point man. using that Minehound to search for IEDs. Yeah, and it's funny because I was never scared at the time, but I look back and I'm like, what the hell, man? What was I thinking? But
So you guys ended up out with the Scouts, didn't you? Isn't that where you first started?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we first started with the Scouts, and it was awesome. They appreciate us, and they liked us, and they would always use us to blow up any suspicious thing. Like, if they found anything that looked suspicious, they would ask us to bring the sappers forward.
Just haphazardly, like, this looks suspicious, buddy. Can you...
Yeah.
Which is,
and they didn't...
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, they weren't worried about blast windows either, so I think Lieutenant McCarthy, First Lieutenant McCarthy, he was an awesome dude. He would just be like, yeah, blow that shit, dude. And we would bring some C4 up, and we'd blow up anything suspicious and then move on. And it was really fun, but they eventually got tasked with being on an outpost on top of a mountain that overlooked Kandahar, and they didn't need sappers because they weren't moving around. They were just shooting tow missiles at Taliban all day, so they didn't need sappers. So that's when we got switched to Black Hawk Company.
So on that deployment, what do you think the funniest thing you went through on that deployment? What was not the greatest, but the funniest thing you saw?
The funniest thing was, I remember it was on one of the missions titled Cobra Quake, and we had to walk about, I want to say 15 miles to get to this mission location, and we had probably, my body armor weighed 68 pounds, I'll never forget that, with the ammo in the front, and then my
roughly or
rucksack
specifically? Just kidding.
Say again?
I said roughly or specifically? I was just kidding.
Specifically, yeah, I remember weighing 68 pounds. But my rucksack weighed about 80 pounds. So it was a lot of weight to carry about 15 miles out to the mission location. And when we got there, we started clearing an entire village. And before we went into the village, there was the scouts that sat on top of the mountain with binoculars overlooking. They saw Taliban that were in the field. So they they launched a PGM, which is a precision guided mortar.
Yes.
Yeah, 120, and it comes down. So and
just for the people that don't know, the PGM was a GPS guided 120 millimeter round.
Yeah.
So go ahead, continue.
And it would use the tail to spin specific speeds to actually control where it's going to fall. And they launched this mortar on this Taliban guy and blow his legs off in a field. And meanwhile, there's this guy, this local Afghan that's like farming, and he's like on his tractor, and they see the guy with his legs blown off like crawling away, and then the guy on the tractor just runs him over. And they're like, oh, the tractor got him, man, that sucked. It was the funniest thing to hear and see to see and hear on the radio, and we couldn't believe it, but it was, sure enough, it happened, and we didn't really feel bad because we had seen our guys get their legs blown off, and it was interesting to know that there was Afghans out there riding around tractors when we were like ready to be engaged in battle, just ready to like run over Taliban dudes that are like on their last life.
I thought your funny story was going to be about the time the guy stole the uniforms after you kicked him off your little base, and then he tried attacking in the same uniform. Oh shit! Wait a minute. I'm trying to remember that now. I have really bad lapses in my memory from that deployment, as you may know. Yeah. But so let's talk about your injury.
Sure.
Let's. What was the mission that your injury happened on? What were you guys supposed to do?
We were going into a town called Salim Akka, and we knew there was. Taliban had weapons and explosives, and we're using it as like a bomb-making location, and just had weapons caches. And we had 4 platoons drop off by Chinook at like 5 a.m. right before sunrise on all 4 corners of the town, and we were all to kind of assault inwards. And of course, I was point man with the Minehound. Yeah. And the goal was to clear the village, basically, find these weapons. The point of the mission was to clear the village. Yeah.
What happened? Describe what you remember from the injury, if you're okay with it.
Yeah, of course. So I remember it was a really nice day. It was a beautiful day, actually. There was poppy fields everywhere, kind of outside the village. And as we start moving in, of course, everyone's in a single file line behind me, but they're not close to me. I have my one infantryman. His name was Chad Mills. He's an awesome dude. He still lives in Colorado. Chad Mills would always be right behind me because he was like my shooter, because I didn't have my weapon usually at the ready when I was had my mine hound out. So Chad Mills would be right behind me, and then everyone else would be single file line walking exactly where I cleared.
Right.
And just to make sure they don't step off the trail. And out of nowhere, this guy on a motorcycle just comes riding through, and we stop him. The infantry guys stop him and immediately start, they rip him off the motorcycle. And they're like, "What the hell? What are you doing?" And they got the interpreter over, and he's denying that he's Taliban and stuff like that. Come to find out later, he was hooking up all the IEDs in Flee-Macaw, making sure they were all ready for us, because they don't leave the IEDs hooked up all the time. Because they can be dangerous, or maybe it just saves the battery on the initiation device. But anyways, they catch him or whatever. I don't think much of it, because I'm more focused on just clearing the road. I'm letting them handle other stuff.
And what month of the deployment were you in at this time? 6?
This was a month 6. It was September 8th, 2011.
So you guys have been doing this for a minute.
Yeah, this was so just routine stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, it was. I'd probably done it about close to 100 times already before that, and I found a lot of IEDs too. Mostly through visual means, but a couple with the mine hound. Mm-hmm. And we're going in, and right after they're finished dealing with this guy, we pick up to move, and I'm standing. I cleared so I could walk a little bit off the trail. I didn't want to stand right on the middle of the road the whole time. But I didn't know if there was another guy that was going to come through on a bike and just like hit me in the middle of the road. Because we typically stuck to the middle of the road. You were
the first guy. You were the point guy, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I could see kind of
unarmed the point guy.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to clear real quick and step off the road. And I have my good man, PFC Riley, Michael Riley, with me. Mm-hmm. He's real close to me at this point because we're at a standstill, and we were, I was kind of just going over what I'm doing. I was kind of training him in a way, even though it was kind of too late for training. We're already in the shit, but I was kind of showing him the way. And he's standing right next to me. I kind of cleared this area, so we have a little patch we can stand on before we pick up and move. And they're like, okay, let's move. So and actually, we were going a different way than we wanted to, so we almost turned around. And the moment we kind of turned around and I step off my pad that I cleared, all of a sudden, I just remember there being dust everywhere. I couldn't see in front of me. My feet felt really hot. Like it almost felt like there was like direct sunshine shining on my bare feet, maybe like a hairdryer blowing like hot air on my feet. And there's just dust everywhere. And I noticed I was sitting down. And I'm like, when did I sit down? And next thing I realized is an explosion went off, because the explosion, when it's so close to you, you don't really hear it. Your ears just kind of go deaf immediately. You just immediately go deaf when you hear an explosion that loud. And then when my ears started coming to a ring, I was like, oh my God, somebody got hit. Somebody's fucking hit. We got to help them. And then I looked down at my legs, and my left one, from maybe the middle of my shin below, is completely gone. And I'll never forget how it looked, how my bone looked sticking out. It was like the whitest white thing I'd ever seen in my life. It was like this raw bone sticking out. It was like something I've never seen before. It kind of stuck in my head for a long time. But I look at my right leg, and it's just shredded like ground beef from the bottom of my heel on my right side all the way up to like my inner thigh. And I was like, God damn, dude, I guess it was me. I was like, and then I remember thinking, I knew this was going to fucking happen. I was like, I should have known this was going to happen. I can't be point man for a whole year-long deployment and not get fucking hit at least once. And then my biggest fear, everyone's biggest fear over there, was, taking genital damage, getting your dick blown off, for lack of better words. And I remember the first thing I did, my left hand was completely shredded. It was, they call it degloved. I lost all the skin on the tops of my fingers on my left side because it was holding my rifle, so that when the explosion came up, it hit the back of my hand. So I reached down with my right hand, which was unscathed, just to feel if like my dick and my balls were still there. And when I pulled my right hand up, it was just covered in blood. My pants were blown off. Everything was exposed. And when I saw how bloody my hand was, I thought my dick was gone. My balls were gone. And I immediately was like, fuck, dude. I think I want to die. I want to kill myself if nobody gets here. Because I didn't know if anybody was close to me at the time. I wasn't sure if anyone was still alive that was near me. So I look over to find my rifle. I was like, well, if I can find my rifle, maybe I can just kill myself. I hadn't really confirmed that decision yet, but I wanted it to be an option. So I'm looking for my rifle, and it's like bent in a U shape, like rocking back and forth on the dirt, like next to me, completely just blasted. It looked like something that if you were holding, you'd be dead, but I was alive. And my medic, immediately after that kind of thought consumed my head, my medic comes over. He was an awesome dude. His name's AJ Creason. He was our third medic because our first one got killed, Brian Backus, and our second one, Darren Mann, got blown up so bad he couldn't walk anymore. He had both his legs, but they shattered every bone in his legs. So we're on our third medic, and I was his first casualty. And he runs over very nervously, and I'm like, and the first thing I'm saying is, Doc, is my dick okay? Is my dick there? And he, like, I love him to death. He's such a sweetheart for doing this. Like, I'll never forget this. He actually, like, closely inspected my package. He was looking at everything, and like, I could feel him grabbing it. And he's like, Sergeant, he's like, there's damage. He's like, but it's going to be okay. It's repairable. It's repairable damage. It's still there. And I was like, oh, good, thank God. I was like, okay, well then you can put some tourniquets on my legs now. And he's like, oh, okay. And I kind of help him get a tourniquet over my right leg because although it's like shredded really bad, it's still there. The left leg, it was really painful because all my flesh was just hanging down kind of where the back of your calf would be with my bone sticking out. So he got a tourniquet on that leg. And so once we get the tourniquets on, he tries to give me morphine. He has like 2 syringes of morphine that they take on mission, but he accidentally puts it below the tourniquet. So I was like, Doc, you have to put it above, like in my stomach or something. And he's like, oh, fuck. He's like, that's the only one I had today. And I was like, well, fuck, don't worry about it, man. I'll be okay. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. And, I still love the dude, but yeah, that kind of made things a lot worse because after about 5 minutes or so, the pain starts to hit me, and it is just the worst pain imaginable. It wasn't there the first 30 seconds, the first minute, but once about like my head cleared and I was still hearing ringing and seeing stars, I started to realize this intense pain, and it started out in my legs, but then it just went to where the tourniquets are at. The tourniquets were so tight. They teach us how to do tourniquets so much in the Army. Right. And, they teach you tighten them the fuck down, like real tight. And so he tightens them down, and oh my God, these things hurt. So I'm asking him, like, loosen them. Like, oh, just loosen them a little bit, Doc. And he's like, I can't do that, Sergeant. And I'm like, okay. So I'm sitting there kind of, I'm not losing my shit, which, I'm proud of. I went to Special Forces selection before I went in this deployment, and that really taught me how to manage pain and like agony. So by the time I got my legs blown off, a lot of thoughts were going through my head and stuff like that. And I remember one of the thoughts was, this is really painful, but I don't know if it's quite as painful as 21 days at Camp McCall. So I was like, trying to tell myself that.
Yeah.
I mean, Camp McCall was bad. Like, it was, I had an intense pain for like, an hour when I got my legs blown off, but Camp McCall was an intense pain for 21 days. But that kind of helped me. And I thought about stuff like that. And the part that was really hard though, is when my other staffer, specialist, Campagnoni, Christopher Campagnoni from Boston or from Massachusetts, he kind of shows up to see what's going on. This is probably only like 3 minutes in, and I'll just never forget the ghost white look on his face when he saw me. Like he looked like he saw a ghost, and it was just really scary that he was looking at me when that facial expression was made, because I think that he probably thought that I was, going to die. And we had gotten really close over that deployment, just like I was with Riley.
Right.
And I was kind of Campagnone's mentor, even though he was a lot older than me. He had a lot more life experience than me, but I had a lot more Army experience than him. So I was kind of a mentor in the Army, and I think it might be tough to see your mentors, brought down to their knees with their leg gone.
Right.
And meanwhile, to go back to Riley had been right in front of me, my other sapper, and he got blown forward like maybe 3 feet, and it was like face down. And he was hurt pretty bad because the IED that got me just peppered shrapnel all over the backs of his arms and his legs. And he was in a world of pain. And so anyway, I guess Campagnone gets there, and we're sitting there for about an hour. And almost immediately after I stepped on mine, Contreras and Jeffries, which were, I knew Contreras from the first CAF. Me and Contreras, he's an infantryman, 11 Bravo. We both PCS'd to Fort Drum at about the same time. And we see each other drum, and I'm like, hey, dude, I know you. And we were in the same battalion in the first CAF. Right after that happened to me, Contreras and Jeffries were, they stepped on an IED, and they both got killed.
God damn.
So it was the same style IED as I think I stepped in. But the only reason I think I survived is because my IED got a little bit wet, and it didn't fully explode. It was maybe only about the top 10% of the ammonium nitrate and aluminum powder that blew up. So I guess my life was spared from the rain or something, because Contreras and Jeffrey stepped on one, and they both got killed. And it was really bad. I mean, my squad leader, Sean White, Staff Sergeant Sean White, was there trying to keep them alive, and he said there was absolutely no hope for either of them. So that was going on at the same time, and they told me, like, hey, Sergeant McKinney, you have to sit tight, man. You're gonna have to wait. They're sending the medevac to get Contreras and Jeffries, because they might be able to, they might be able to keep those guys alive. They're in way worse condition than you. Like, you're still talking. They're not talking, man. So they're gonna send the helicopter to them. And I was like, that's fine, man. That's fine. Pick up those guys. And I'm just really that when you have really bad pain and you're just kind of grinding your teeth and just like rocking back and forth. And, I'm just sitting there, and I never went into shock this whole hour. Like most people, when they lose that much blood, they go into shock. I never did, but I attribute that to the Special Forces selection. It really taught me kind of that I could be okay with an insurmountable amount of pain and be okay. So I was kind of just reassuring myself that, and trying to, kind of smile, trying to break out a smile. I don't remember if I ever did, but just trying to keep the guys in decent spirits, because they were worried about me, rightfully so. And I lasted, a good hour before they had to pick me up. And by the time they did get to me, I have a video actually of them carrying me to the medevac bird, and I was able to give a thumbs up because I wanted everybody to know that I was going to be fine. I was worried about Campagnone being scared that I was dying. I didn't want them to think that. So in the video, you get to see me giving a thumbs up as they carry me away. But and that's pretty much what happened. But the crazy part is, right after my platoon stood up from carrying my body out of there, they stepped on another IED, and Eddie Moynette got his leg blown off, and they had to go through it all over again. So right after me was just another one, and one after the other. I think about 8 guys lost their legs that day, because when I got to the hospital, I'll never forget, they're pulling me off the bird at Kennar Airfield. I remember looking up at the whole ride there. I told the flight surgeon, I was like, I'm in so much pain. I was like, can you help me? I'm in so much pain. And he's like, I got you, buddy. I got you. And I remember him sticking something in my arm and then shoving a tube down my collarbone. Like it didn't hurt because I was in so much pain, but he shoved something down into my collarbone, and then he gave me a shot. And then by the time I was getting carried off the helicopter, I remember them saying, he's really pale. He's really pale. Everybody hurry up. And I was like, oh, fuck, I think I'm dying.
Because you lost a lot of blood, huh?
Yeah, and I found out the next day. They said I lost 60% of my blood.
Jesus, man.
Which was, Yeah, they had to call up guys on Kandahar Airfield on a registry, other soldiers, and tell them to get their asses over to the hospital because they had to do arm-to-arm blood transfusions to me and a few of the other guys because they ran out of blood that day. So I woke up and had to sign this waiver saying that I got blood from people that, they were tested for diseases and stuff, but not, the day
not
before.
Cleared, yeah.
So, apparently there was like 6 different individuals that were like sitting next to me in my hospital bed as I lay there unconscious doing arm-to-arm blood transfusions to me. And I woke up or came to after the anesthesia, and there was like 8 or 10 other guys in the 287 that were in the hospital beds next to me, including Eddie Moynette and stuff. And I'm like, Eddie, how the fuck did you get here? He's like, oh, Sergeant,
That's
right
a
after
typical
you
McKinney
left,
response, man. That's a typical Will response. Hey, man, what the fuck did you do to get here?
Yeah, and I asked, like, oh, well, what else? Like, who, I was like, is everyone else okay? Is it just us? And that's when they said that Contreras and Jeffries, they didn't make it, and that was just really hard to hear. And about an hour after that, the Sergeant Major of the 10th Mountain Division came in to talk to us and give us our Purple Hearts. And, that was a good moment to see kind of the top leadership coming in and shaking my hand and, saying, you're just going to be all right, buddy. Like, we're going to take care of you.
Yeah.
So, and that's pretty much what happened.
Jesus, dude. I don't even know how to react to that. I've never heard the whole story.
Yeah, it can be. It's tough to tell to people, not because it's hard for me, but because I don't want to make people feel too bad. Because some people will, some of my therapists at Walter Reed would start crying, and I'm like, oh, is this supposed to be like this? Like, damn. But
so where are you at now? Like physically, like what do you have going on right now?
I'm as good as you can get. They won't release you from Walter Reed until you're as good as you can get. But I'm a left below knee amputee.
Okay.
My tibia and fibula are amputated about 4 or 5 inches under my kneecap on my left side.
Okay.
My right leg has pretty intense scarring all up and down the back and the inside. My left arm, I got sleeve tattoos. The sleeves are still kind of messed up from the scarring. There's like missing ink in spots in my arm. I got scars on my ball of my dick.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Everything good?
Everything works. Yeah, it took about a year for everything to start functioning normally because of the scarring and just probably a lot of mental blocks too. But everything works now, and it's something I'm really grateful for, because if it didn't, I'm not sure if I'd still be here. But right. Everything works. And then my left hand, I have a lot of I have skin grafts all on the top of my left fingers, and I can't really bend those fingers. They kind of just bend halfway. So I can still type on a keyboard, which is good. They bend enough for that, but I can't like hold like coins in my hand and stuff in my left hand. So and then I have random little scars like on my butt and stuff like that, because it was right under me, but that's about it. So just a lot of scarring, and then some skin grafts, and then a missing left leg, and I walk around pretty good in the prosthetic.
It's rough. It's rough, Will. It's rough.
It's better than a lot of things and a lot of guys that I was with.
Right.
I didn't lose both my legs.
Right. Do you feel like the military prepared you to get out? Like, you went from laying down scunion and doing all that shit you did, and then now all of a sudden you're scunion. You're an amputee trying to get out of the Army. Do you think the Army kind of helped you out with that or not?
It's funny because they help you with this class called TAPS.
Yeah.
TAPS class is like, I think that's what it's called. It's like to help you transition out of the military. I think everybody has to do it before they get out, no matter what branch. And they really try to prepare you with TAPS class or whatever. That might be the wrong name for it. I can't remember. It's an acronym. But you take classes and stuff.
It used to be called ACAP, but now you're right. It's called TAP.
ACAP. Yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. So I did that, and that didn't really give me much information. It was kind of just them telling you that you need to wear a suit to an interview,
Right.
and you need to be respectful when you interview, and stuff like that. And that didn't really help me. What helped me was the stuff that I learned on the front lines. You know, the ability to work under extreme pressure and still hold my bearing, the ability to go through extreme pain and still be able to kind of be level-headed, the ability to operate without sleep, the ability to work with people that are very hard to get along with,
Right.
that I was still able to get along with. That taught me more and helped me more than anything. And that's what kind of helped me get to where I am today as a professional engineer, and helped me get through college and stuff. But the Army transition program that kind of helped me get out, that was pretty useless for me.
Yeah.
It was kind of just obvious stuff.
Right.
So the Army definitely, they tried, and they helped, and they provided a lot of resources for us. It was the kind of thing that if you wanted to take seriously, you could get a lot out of it. And I took it as seriously as I could, but my attention span was really bad at the time. I was on a lot of drugs, which was not fun. But, you know, it's also the kind of thing that if you didn't want to take seriously, you're like, oh, this is all stupid. You know, there's a lot of guys like that, and they got nothing out of it. And, you know, but I got way more out of just my career in the Army on the front lines and working with, you know, guys like you, guys like First Sergeant Goff,
Yeah.
you know, guys like Justin Griffin,
Right.
Campagnoni, like those guys. I learned a lot from just being with you guys and just operating in the military. And that's what helped me get through college and kind of get through my injury and overcome, you know, being injured.
So where are you at now in life? So what do you got going on?
So nowadays, when I got out of Walter Reed, I wanted to study to become a petroleum engineer that does things in oil and gas.
Why'd you
things
pick
like
that?
drilling,
Can I pause you for a second? Why'd you decide to pick that?
Yeah.
That's a crazy thing to pick of all the things.
Yeah. Well, there was a few different events that kind of brought into it, but when I got out of the Army, I realized I didn't have any skills that could make a decent amount of money.
Right.
And I didn't just want to ride on my veteran skills. Like, oh, hey, I was a combat engineer. Like, you should hire me for a lot of money.
Nobody needs route clearance at Walmart in the United States.
I know. And I knew that wasn't marketable. So I'm like, I want to pick a profession that I could make good money in, that maybe my military experience will just kind of boost it. It won't be why I get hired, but it'll be something that will like supplement, like, you know, this. And I realized I have the GI Bill. I can get an education at any school I want to, as long as I get in. So I was like, well, how about I do this? How about I study something very difficult and something that pays good money? Because, I mean, I've done difficult things before. I'm confident I could get through difficult academic stuff.
Right.
And my father works for BP.
Okay.
He actually just retired from BP, and he's not an engineer. He's more of a businessman. And he does like HR and stuff like that for BP. But he's always worked for oil and gas. And when I was in New York at the time, kind of making these decisions on like what I want to do, they just banned fracking. And I was interested. I was like, wait a minute, why does everyone have a yard sign that says fracking with like an X through it?
Right.
And I went and did some research on what it was, and I was completely fascinated by this scientific process of cracking shale rocks to produce petroleum.
Right.
And I was like, well, I called my dad up and I'm like, hey, Dad, I like this hydraulic fracturing stuff. Is that something I could get into? Like, you know, go out west or like go to Texas where it's obviously not being banned. And he's like, yeah. He's like, that's definitely something good to do. And I talked to my mom about this too, and both of them kind of said the same thing. They're like, if you want to do that, you need to be a petroleum engineer. And I was like, okay, well, how do I get to that point? And they're like, well, there's only one school worth studying that at. It's arguably the best school in the world for petroleum engineering. People come from all over the world, Saudi Arabia, like Kuwait, UAE, Canada, Mexico. They come there to study, and it's called the Colorado School of Mines. It's known for its mining engineering and natural resources engineering. And that's all it does, is just engineering. It's an all-engineering school. There's about 5,000 students. There's almost like no chicks there, which kind of sucks. There's nobody parties there. It's, well, some people party, but like 99% of the population didn't party. It wasn't a party school. And I was like, you know what? That'd be a great school for me because supposedly it's a really good school and there won't be any distractions like partying and girls. And sure enough, there wasn't. But it was freaking hard. It took me 3 years to get into that school. That school has like some of the most strictest admission standards of any school in Colorado and some of like the U.S. So I had to study at community college for 2.5 years and take all of my physics, calculus, chemistry classes, which were real hard for me at the time. But I was in community college, and they're very patient with you in community college. You know, if you don't get something, you're allowed to raise your hand in class, and the professor will come over and, you know, kind of walk you through it, you know. So I was grateful for going to community college for 2.5 years because after 2.5 years of getting all A's and B's in like physics, chemistry, calculus, all those classes, and it was straight math classes for 2.5 years. It was crazy. I had to be so good at calculus, differential equations, physics too. Like I had to be really good at this stuff. And I got good at it because I was just really determined. And eventually the School of Mines accepted me. And I got in, and holy crap, was that really hard. I've never been tested on that level before. Like the Army was hard, but I was good at it.
Right.
But the Colorado School of Mines was so hard, and I wasn't good at it. And there was all my classmates were these like, you know, the best and the brightest from like Saudi Arabia, there's the brightest from like Russia, and the kids that are from the U.S. will come from these rich ass oil and gas families. Like daddy's a petroleum engineer, daddy owns an oil company. One of my buddies, I won't say his name because I'm not sure if he wants me to. His dad was Saddam Hussein's oil minister before Saddam Hussein got invaded in 2003.
God damn.
I mean, their family's like, you know, really well off. And the cool part is this kid's totally awesome. He's like one of the coolest dudes I know. But, you know, we have like, there was like Kuwaiti royalty that's at this school. Like this kid, he was so stupid rich, but he was very quiet. But anyways, just being among this crowd, I'm like, dude, I don't know if I can hack it. Like, I don't know if I can hang with these people. Like, I'm not that smart. Like, you know, I was good at the Army, and I'm a decently smart guy, but I'm not like top, you know, engineering school smart. But, you know, I had this same idea when I got to Special Forces selection. When I got to Special Forces selection, I was a 6'1", probably 180-pound dude. Everyone else there was like, they were like 210 pounds of just like pure, like twisted steel and just like muscle. And I was like, oh my God, dude. I was like, I can't fucking compete with this. And the funny part is every one of those guys in Special Forces selection failed out. And the only guys that were left when we finished and got selected was tall, skinny dudes like me.
Let me tell you. So I gotta tell you.
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the biggest things I respect about you is that you got selected to be a Special Forces guy, and you chose to do this deployment with your guys, which is by far one of the most biggest marks of respect that I could ever give anybody, because that is crazy that you could have dimed out of this deployment easily because SF said you're good to go, and you out of duty and honor went and did this deployment, and you know, and unfortunately what happened, but that is one of the things that I look back at as that one of the most proudest moments I've ever had of anybody, is that you did that. Like, you could have easily got out of that deployment.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that. That means a lot. Because, I remember they told me, they're like, you have orders for the JFK Special Warfare Center. You don't have to go on deployment anymore. And actually, it took about a month of thinking about it before I came back from, I think, Christmas leave. And I was like, I went to Captain Allen, and I was like, sir, I think I want to deploy with you guys. And that was, I didn't really think much of it at the time. I was like, it's not a big deal. I'm just going to go to Special Force. I'm going to go to Q course when I get back from deployment. It's not a big deal at all. But I guess, what I didn't know at the time is how bad it was in the area we were going. Yeah, it was that, it wasn't that selfless of an act, but I do really appreciate your recognition for that. That's true. That's funny you say that, because I forget about about some of these little details sometimes. But there was a couple of guys in the company, I won't say any names, that said that the reason I went to selection And it was because I could get out of the deployment because I was scared. I was like, what? I'm not scared of anything, dude. But I remember that rumor going around because, everybody's like, hey, McKinney, they said you're fucking scared. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh, watch this, motherfucker.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I didn't find out that rumor until we were in Afghanistan. I was like, well, shit. I was like, obviously that was wrong. But no, I guess that's a good point.
So do you still keep in contact with the people that you were, that you deployed with besides me and some of the other guys?
Yeah, almost all of them. And that's
Really?
why I'm grateful for Facebook, because I'm not one of those people who posts all my political and religious views on Facebook. I just kind of update on photos of what I'm doing. But Facebook has allowed me to communicate with these guys, and I'm grateful for it because, if anything were to go wrong, guys like Justin Griffin or something,
right.
If I was like, dude, Justin, I'm having a really rough time, or Stephen Franklin's the same way, those guys would probably fly out, the next day to just come be with me if I was in some sort of crisis.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, that's how close that we got in the hospital, because Justin Griffin got shot, and I won't tell his story.
No, I was there.
But he was. You were there. Yeah, that's right.
Let me tell you. So the day he got shot that night is when I got the call about you on the radio.
Oh.
Yeah, it was I'm pretty sure.
No, I got hurt on September 8th, and I think you were on patrol at the time
with him,
but Justin got wounded on September 11th.
Yeah, so we didn't have a radio though.
Oh yeah, that's right. You guys were out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, we did a 3 or 4 day movement to that where we were doing what we were doing, and then I got the call from Gaw saying what happened with you, and my heart sunk, man. My heart sunk because I just put Griffin on a bird. Yeah, it was bad.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but how you doing now?
Yeah. Well, I'm doing good. I graduated from I graduated from the Colorado School of Mines, and again, that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. And all the students that were there were just like, yeah, no big deal. Sorry, say again?
Including SFAS, one of the hardest things you've ever done?
Yeah. Oh, that's how hard that school was. That school is known. That school was so hard that we had 8 suicides among the student population in 2018 alone.
Shut the fuck up.
That school, yeah, it was exactly like the Army all over again. There was no chicks. There was like, well, there was
a few, and they were like queen for a year.
Yeah, and it was just, and everybody at that school was like miserable. I swear, like you wouldn't see people like giggling and stuff in the hallway, like gossiping and hanging out. You would just see students with their backpacks, like walking with their head down, like through the hallways to their classes, because they know they're about to get wrecked on the next project or test. But the problem is you could quit at any time. No one's keeping you there. But all of us engineers have put so much time and energy, like years of effort into getting into this school. So it's like, I'm not at the point where I can just give up, because that just wastes like the past 3 years of my life.
Right.
And there's no other school in that entire region of the country that teaches petroleum engineering. Not like you can just, break off and go to CU Boulder or something like that, and Boulder, Colorado, and party your ass off like all those people. But that school was so utterly difficult for me. And upon graduation, it was just such a weight lifted off my shoulders. I mean, I got seriously depressed at that school, just not only for lack of I didn't really have much support. I had some fellow veteran students that were helpful, but I was without a doubt the only guy there that had a Purple Heart in the entire school, and the only guy I think that had been in like intense frontline combat, because most of the other veterans were like non-combat job veterans, or they were like Navy veterans. I didn't meet any other guys that were combat engineers, and I didn't meet any other guys that were like frontline medics or infantrymen. It was it was like the really bright guys from the military that they got out of the military because they were too smart for it. And I like the military. I wanted to stay in for life as a Green Beret. But anyways, it was a really tough 2.5 years at that school. They didn't have any like accommodations for veterans and stuff like that. They didn't even have a vet center. Like me and some friends started the vet club there because they don't have any veterans at that school. And the cool part is the vet club got Purple Heart parking spots all around the campus. I was the only one that could use them. So I would just go around using these Purple Heart spots. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty fucking cool. Like, yeah. because I knew there was no one else at that school that had that. But once I graduated, it was just a huge weight off my shoulders because I got a job offer as a frac engineer in Midland, Texas, which is where I wanted to move to because they have really the world's best technology. And basically the front lines of the petroleum industry is here in Midland, Texas. So getting a job offer before I graduated and then graduating, I got down here and bought a house with my VA loan. I'm exempt from property taxes, which is really nice because of my Purple Heart and my disability status.
Uh-huh.
And this job that I got is a hydraulic fracturing engineer. And it's exactly what I left New York for to come to Colorado to study. And it's like 5.5 years later down the road, I finally got to where I wanted to be. And the pay is really good. The hours are pretty hardcore, but this is just something I'm going to be doing for the first year or two of my career as a field engineer. And it's a rewarding job because I get to work with guys out in this frac location that's exactly like a platoon in the Army. And we just bullshit all day. We don't have to have filters. There's like no girls out there at all because for some reason women don't really want to lift heavy pipes and work 14 hours a day for 14 days straight. And that's not what I'm doing. I'm the engineer of the operation. So I do like data collection. I do calculations for sand that goes into the earth to prop open the fractures. I do data retrieval, and then I collect all the data and bring it together to present basically to the company. And it's a really good job, and it's exactly where I wanted to be 5.5 years ago. And it's good because it keeps me busy and keeps my mind off, places it doesn't need to wander to.
Right. You still have problems with that?
Yeah.
Not that I'm judging. I'm just saying it's understandable.
No, I understand. Yeah. No, I mean, I do. It's tough because I've lost some really close friends along the way after getting out, like Merlin. Yeah. Merlin Quiles. Yeah. We got Tommy Reyes. Guys, both of them got killed on a motorcycle, and they were, Tommy Reyes was my fellow team leader. We didn't always see eye to eye on things in Afghanistan, but at the same time, he would have, he would have laid his life down for me if he, if the time came for it, and mine for him. So, he was always a good support system to have when I got out, because we'd hang out sometimes in New York. But since getting out, I guess, my mind's wandering now. What was the last question?
It's okay. So if you had to do it all again, would you do it again? You think so?
Yeah.
I
think so.
So in my head, the point where you could split was going to SF or going to the Q course or doing the deployment. Would you go back and okay?
Ooh.
Remember what you're talking about?
Yeah. So I guess it was, if I could go back and become a Green Beret, or would I take this path? It's a really good question because I guess both professions are very, I don't know, in my eyes, like very respected and just impressive. Yes. Because Green Beret is, I guess, can be the dream of a lot of soldiers. But I don't know, for a lot of people that are in, I guess, STEM, which is science, technology, engineering, math, I think petroleum engineering is one of the coolest kind of parts of that whole science, technology, engineering, math kind of department, because energy is kind of what powers our everyday life. Things like, our lights being able to turn on, AC, heating, your car, your ability to get groceries from the grocery store depends on fuel. All of our farming, our tractors, they're all based on one thing, and that's energy. And petroleum engineers are basically like the front lines of energy production. They're the guys that find out how to extract this energy from the earth, how to do it efficiently, how to do it safely, and how to bring it to market so that we can live the lives that we do. And I find it to be a really impressive profession, and it got reinforced when I got to the Colorado School of Mines. There was another student, I won't say his last name because I don't know if he wants me to say it, but we'll just say his name's Jay, and he was a Green Beret in 10th group for 20 years. And his dreams and aspirations after being a Green Beret for 20 years was to become a petroleum engineer from Colorado School of Mines. And I was like, well, damn, that's freaking awesome. And this guy was like 42 years old, like he'd served for 20 years, and he looked like kind of a young guy. Like he looked younger than he really was. But it was so cool to just talk to him. And I'm like, wait a minute, well, why did you want to become a petroleum engineer after being a Green Beret? Like, you've done the most badass stuff ever. And you could get out and be like this contract, like Blackwater agent, like you'd go be a mercenary. But no, he wanted to be a petroleum engineer because I think it's just such a badass profession. So I don't know. I'd probably have to think about that for a while on whether or not I would want to go back and become a Green Beret or, stay this round, go petroleum engineer. But, off the top of my head, though, when I think about the experiences I had in Afghanistan and the friends that I made and the potential lives that I may have saved through IEDs that I found and the potential life that I saved by the IED that I stepped on and not letting anyone else step on it, because maybe the guy that would have stepped on it wouldn't be able to last an hour without going into shock or something. I guess after taking all this into consideration, I probably would do it all over again the exact same way.
Thanks, Will, for doing this with me. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, definitely.
This was one of the best interviews I've ever done, and I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. So, one last thing that I kind of wanted to talk about to kind of almost give meaning to some of my stories, I guess, is it's kind of, how rough things can be when you get back from places like Afghanistan or Iraq, or even veterans, or maybe even police officers, first responders that have to go through really difficult things. Suicide is, a huge problem, especially for veterans and first responders and stuff like that. And it's understandable. Like, I know why people want to do it. I know why people think it might help, but the problem is those feelings are temporary, because you have to realize that things can get better, and oftentimes they do get better. And sometimes it takes a little bit of work on your part to make them better, but nothing worth having doesn't require, some level of work. And it can be really tough to pull yourself out of a bad spot. But I think that the idea that good days are to come and better things can happen and your life can get a lot better no matter how bad it's been, is something that you kind of just have to keep in the back of your head, because a lot of us have been at the point where we're like, I'm not sure if I want to go on, right. Especially, with some of the struggles that I've been through. There's times when I've kind of, thought about stuff like that, but I think about how, if I just stick on this path and I just keep going, you're going to be all right if you just keep going. And one thing I do is I know we're not supposed to really compare ourselves to others, but I just think about how rough so many other people have had it, and how there's other people here that don't have things like good health. There's guys that don't have things like 2 legs. There's guys that are bedridden, for life. And it's like, man, if you can just get up and breathe and move around and, hold down a job or have the opportunity to go to school, it's just such a blessing. And I think that we need to count our blessings every day to realize that, life goes on, and suicide doesn't do anything other than pass the pain to someone else.
Somebody else. Yep. Somebody else. 'Cause it's the family that has to deal with that, not the person that does it. That's right.
It's the wife or the father that have to find the person. It's like, do you know? Yeah. And I've heard stories from friends of, having to deal with stuff like that. And it's just heartbreaking. And
it is.
I don't know. I think that despite it being a thing that a lot of us struggle with at some point in our life, reach out to a brother. Yes. And say, hey man, I'm not feeling too good about things, and I'm just wondering if you could talk for a minute, because I'll be that guy if you want to call me. I'm sure you'll be that guy, Scott. If
yeah, absolutely.
Want to call you.
Yep.
And
it takes a minute, man, just to check in. That's all it does.
Yeah. It takes 5 minutes to ask your buddy how he's doing.
Get help or give help. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's a good way to think of it.
Yeah, give help or get help. Well, thank you, Will. This has been a great story. I appreciate your time. If you ever need anything, just text me.
Before I go, on behalf of Andrew and I, we would like to thank all the veterans we talked to for taking the time to share their stories with us. We created this podcast to show not just the military, but everyone that you can make it through some of the toughest times in your life and come out on the other side on top. Here at Surviving as a Civilian, we cannot stress enough the importance of getting help if you need it or giving help if you can. Sometimes it could be as simple as making a phone call or answering that phone in the middle of the night from someone you haven't heard from in a while. If you or someone you know is struggling, help is available at the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-8255 or text the word HOME to 741-741. If you think your story can help someone out and you want to share it with us, please email us at survivingasacivilian.casting@gmail.com. Subscribe and rate this podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or anywhere else you get your podcast. Like and follow Surviving as a Civilian on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Until next time, get help if you need it, or give help if you can.